Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Here we are in sunny Primrose Hill, brisk morning, long walk, reading Bhagavatam.
So Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 11. The chapter is Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart.
We're hoping for a change in heart.
Change in weather anyway.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, so text 11. All the different kinds of worshippers of multi-demigods can attain the highest perfection or benediction, which is spontaneous attraction, unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by the association of the pure devotee of the Lord. Purport. All living entities in different statuses of life within the material creation, beginning from the first demigod Brahma down to the small ant, are conditioned under the law of material nature or the external energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entity in his pure state is conscious of the fact that he is a part and parcel of the Lord, but when he is thrown into the material world on account of his desire to lord it over material energy, he becomes conditioned by the three modes of material nature, and thus struggles for existence for the highest benefit. This struggle for existence is something like following the will-o'-the-wisp under the spell of material enjoyment. All plans for material enjoyment, either by worship of different demigods, as described in the previous verses of this chapter, or by modernized advancement of scientific knowledge without the help of God or demigod, are illusionary only. For despite all such plans for happiness, the conditioned living being within the compass of material creation can never solve the problems of life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. The history of the universe is full of such plan makers, and many kings and emperors come and go, leaving a plan-making story only. But the prime problems of life remain unsolved, despite all endeavors by such plan makers. So true.
Actually, human life is meant for making a solution to the problems of life. One can never solve such problems by satisfying the different demigods, by different modes of worship, or by so-called scientific advancement and knowledge without the help of God or the demigods. Apart from the gross materialists who care very little either for God or for the demigods, the Vedas recommend worship of different demigods for different benefits, and so the demigods are neither false nor imaginary. The demigods are as factual as we are, but they are much more powerful due to their being engaged in the direct service of the Lord and managing different departments of the universal government. The Bhagavad Gita affirms this, and the different planets of the demigods are mentioned there, including the one of the supreme demigod, Lord Brahma. The gross materialists do not believe in the existence of God or the demigods, nor do they believe that different planets are dominated by different demigods. They are creating a great commotion about reaching the closest celestial body, Chandra Loka, or the moon. But even after such mechanical research, they have only very scanty information of this moon. And in spite of much false advertisement for selling land on the moon, the puffed up scientists or gross materialists cannot live there, and what to speak of reaching the other planets, which they are unable even to count.
Okay. However, the followers of the Vedas have a different method of acquiring knowledge. They accept the statements of the Vedic literatures as stated in toto, as we have already discussed in Canto 1. And therefore they have full and reasonable knowledge of God and demigods and of their different residential planets situated within the compass of the material world and beyond the limit of the material sky. The most authentic Vedic literature accepted by the great Indian acharyas like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhav, Vishnu Swami, Nimbaka and Chaitanya, and studied by all important personalities of the world, is the Bhagavad Gita, in which the worship of the demigods and their respective residential planets are mentioned. The Bhagavad Gita 9:25 affirms Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Pritin Yanti Prite Vrata Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja Yanti Madhyajino Mam No Pimam Apimam. The worshippers of demigods reach the respective planets of the demigods, and the worshippers of forefathers reach the planets of the forefathers. The gross materialist remains in the different material planets, but the devotees of the Lord reach the kingdom of God.
We also have information from the Bhagavad Gita that all the planets within the material world, including Brahmaloka, are but temporarily situated, and after a fixed period they are all annihilated. Therefore the demigods and the followers are all annihilated at the period of devastation. But one who reaches the kingdom of God gets a permanent share in eternal life. That is the verdict of the Vedic literature. The worshippers of the demigods have one facility more than the unbelievers due to their being convinced of the Vedic version, by which they can get information of the benefit of worshipping the Supreme Lord and the association of the devotees of the Lord. The gross materialist, however, without any faith in the Vedic version, remains eternally in darkness, driven by a false conviction on the basis of imperfect experimental knowledge, or so-called material science, which can never reach into the realm of transcendental knowledge.
Therefore, unless the gross materialists or the worshippers of the temporary demigods come in contact with a transcendentalist like the pure devotee of the Lord, their attempts are simply a waste of energy. Only by the grace of the divine personalities, the pure devotees of the Lord, can one achieve pure devotion, which is the highest perfection of human life. Only a pure devotee of the Lord can show one the right way of progressive life. Otherwise, both the materialistic way of life, without any information of God, or the demigods, and the life engaged in the worship of demigods, in pursuit of temporary material enjoyments, are different phases of phantasmagoria. They are nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita also, but the Bhagavad Gita can be understood in the association of pure devotees only, and not by the interpretations of politicians or dry philosophical speculators.
So basically what's being said here is that demigods are a fact, and worshippers of demigods are better off than non-believers or atheists, and that by worship of demigods one comes in contact with the Supreme Lord, and that's to their eternal benefit. Yeah? Is that what you understood?
Yeah.
Okay. Text 12. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities who could fail to be attracted. Purport. According to Bhagavad Gita 10.9, the characteristics of pure devotees are wonderful. The complete functional activities of a pure devotee are always engaged in the service of the Lord, and thus the pure devotees exchange feelings of ecstasy between themselves and relish transcendental bliss. This transcendental bliss is experienced even in the stage of devotional practice, sadhana avashta, if properly undertaken under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And in the mature stage, the developed transcendental feeling culminates in realization of the particular relationships with the Lord by which a living entity is originally constituted, up to the relationship of conjugal love with the Lord, which is estimated to be the highest transcendental bliss. Thus, Bhakti Yoga, being the only means of God realization, is called Kaivalya. Srila Jiva Goswami quotes the Vedic version, Eko Narayano Deva Paravaran Param Aste Kaivalya Samgitaha, in this connection, and establishes that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivalya, and the means which enables one to approach the Lord is called Kaivalya Pantaha, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. This Kaivalya Pantaha begins from Shravana, or hearing those topics that relate to the personality of Godhead, and the natural consequence of hearing such harikatha is attainment of transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics, for which a devotee has no taste at all. For a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive, and in the mature state, such a devotee becomes uninterested even in his own body, and what to speak of bodily relatives. In such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. There are different modes of material nature, and all mundane functions in which a common man is very much interested, or in which he takes part, become unattractive for the devotee. This state of affairs is described herein as pratinivritta gunarmi, and it is possible at Atma Prasad, or complete self-satisfaction, without any material connection. The first-class devotee of the Lord attains this stage by devotional service, but despite his loftiness for the Lord's satisfaction, he may play the voluntary part of a preacher of the Lord's glory and dovetail all into devotional service, even mundane interest, just to give the neophytes a chance to transform mundane interest into transcendental bliss. Srila Rupa Goswami has described this action of a pure devotee as Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Muchate. Even mundane activities dovetailed with service to the Lord are also calculated to be transcendental or approved Kaivalya affairs. So, this is a very wonderful purport describing how sadhana bhakti can offer bliss to the practitioner as long as done according to the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. Also how hearing is the first stage that leads one to complete detachment from everything mundane. So just simply by hearing, we were discussing this yesterday on Bhakti Shastri with Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, and previous to that the whole principle of karma yoga is that at the karma kanda stage, someone may just be performing sacrifice or penance, austerity, for their own personal gain, to get some riches, to get some benefits, to get a good wife, good husband, good car, good house, good job. But by doing that, they get to hear transcendental knowledge, and simply by that hearing process, they're elevated slowly and gradually to the platform of pure devotion. But a preacher may engage in activities that are apparently mundane just to give a chance to the fallen souls of transcendental activities, of transcendental activity and association. So it means that basically you can be a plumber, you can be a worker, you can be the president, you can be a street sweeper, and perform your activity in a mood of offering to Krishna, and that's still considered devotional service. Anyway, that's my little commentary on that. Anything you'd like to add? Did you pick up all of that? There was a little hot dog just went by. Anything?
No. Text 13. Shonika said, the son of Yasadev, Srila Sukadev Goswami, was a highly learned sage and was able to describe things in a poetic manner. What did Maharaj Parikshit again inquire from him after hearing all that he had said? Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord automatically develops all godly qualities, and some of the prominent features of those qualities are as follows. He is kind, peaceful, truthful, equable, faultless, magnanimous, mild, clean, non-possessive, a well-wisher to all, satisfied, surrendered to Krishna, without hankering, simple, fixed, self-controlled, a balanced eater, sane, mannerly, prideless, grave, sympathetic, friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. Out of these 26 prominent features of a devotee as described by Krishnadas Kaviraj in his Chaitanya Charitamrita, the qualification of being poetic is especially mentioned herein in relation to Sukadev Goswami. The presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam by his recitation is the highest poetic contribution. He was a self-realized learned sage. In other words, he was a poet amongst the sages.
So these are the 26 qualities of a devotee, although I don't remember being a balanced eater as one of the 26 qualities. Do you remember that?
No.
There you go, must be. So,
It may have been written different, if that makes sense.
How would it have been written different?
So noticing even when you're reading and I'm reading, it's not the same for what I'm reading in this book and what you're reading. There are times that it's like, oh, so we could go back and look at that.
And what's yours say?
No, it's same now. But as we're reading,
Yeah,
it's not the same. And so Satsrit Maharaj has a book actually, 26 Qualities of a Devotee. So it might be worth looking at that as well.
Okay. Text 14. O learned Sutta Goswami, please continue to explain such topics to us because we are all eager to hear. Important point. Besides that, topics which result in the discussion of the Lord Hari should certainly be discussed in the assembly of devotees. Purport. As we have already quoted from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami, even mundane things, if dovetailed in the service of the Lord, Sri Krishna, are accepted as transcendental. For example, the epics of the histories of Ramayana and Mahabharata, which are specifically recommended for the less intelligent class, women, Sudras, unworthy sons of the higher caste, are also accepted as Vedic literature because they are compiled in connection with the activities of the Lord. Mahabharata, accepted as the fifth division of the Vedas after its four divisions, namely Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. The less intelligent do not accept Mahabharata as part of the Vedas, but great sages and authorities accept it as the fifth division of the Vedas. Bhagavad Gita is also part of the Mahabharata, and it is full of the Lord's instructions for the less intelligent class of men. Some less intelligent men say that Bhagavad Gita is not meant for householders, but such foolish men forget that Bhagavad Gita was explained to Arjuna, a grihasta, a family man, and spoken by the Lord in his role as a grihasta. So Bhagavad Gita, although containing the high philosophy of Vedic wisdom, is for the beginners in the transcendental science, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is for graduates and postgraduates in the transcendental science. Very nice. Therefore, literatures like Mahabharata, the Puranas, and similar other literatures which are full of the pastimes of the Lord are all transcendental literatures, and they should be discussed with full confidence in the society of great devotees. So there you have it. Bhagavad Gita is for everyone, especially the householders, especially those in the Grihastha ashram, because as Prabhupada said there very nicely, that it's spoken to Arjuna, who is a householder, by Krishna, who is also a householder. So there you go. Horrible.
The difficulties that such literatures, when discussed by professional men, appear to be mundane literature, like histories or epics, because there are so many historical facts and figures. It is said here, therefore, that such literature should be discussed in the assembly of devotees. Unless they are discussed by devotees, such literatures cannot be relished by the higher class of men. It's true.
Is that it? So the conclusion is that the Lord is not impersonal in the ultimate issue. He is the Supreme Person, and He has His different activities. He is the leader of all living entities, and He descends at His will and by His personal energy to reclaim the fallen souls. Thus He plays exactly like the social, political, and religious leaders. Because such roles ultimately culminate in the discussion of topics of the Lord, all such preliminary topics are also transcendental. That is the way of spiritualizing the civic activities of human society. Men have inclinations for studying history and many other mundane literatures, stories, fiction, drama, magazines, newspapers, etc. So let them be dovetailed with the transcendental service of the Lord, and all of them will turn to the topics relished by all the devotees. The propaganda that the Lord is impersonal, that he has no activity, and that he is a dumb stone without any name, form, has encouraged people to become godless, faithless demons. And the more they deviate from the transcendental activities of the Lord, the more they become accustomed to mundane activities that only clear their path to hell instead of return them home back to Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam begins from the history of the Pandavas, with necessary politics and social activities, and yet Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be the Paramahamsa Samhita, or the Vedic literature meant for the topmost transcendentalists, and it describes Param Jnanam, the highest transcendental knowledge. Pure devotees of the Lord are all Paramahamsas, and they are like the swans who know the art of sucking milk out of the mixture of milk and water. So, you were looking there for some reason? There's a footnote.
Yeah, it's the footnotes. The footnote is, even 50 years ago, the social structure of all Indians was so arranged that they would not read any literature that was not connected with the activities of the Lord. They would not play any drama, not connected with the Lord. They would not organize a fair or ceremony not connected with the Lord, nor would they visit a place that was not holy and sanctified by the pastimes of the Lord. You don't have that.
Well, I clicked on it, but then it took me to like the end of the book.
Oh dear.
Okay,
Text 15. Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of the Pandavas, was from his very childhood a great devotee of the Lord. Even while playing with dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of the family deity. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 6.41, it is stated that even a person who has failed in the proper discharge of yoga practice is given a chance to take birth in the house of devout brahmanas or in the houses of rich men like Kshatriya kings or rich merchants. But Maharaj Parikshit was more than that, because he had been a great devotee of the Lord since his previous birth, and as such he took his birth in an imperial family of the Kurus, and especially that of the Pandavas. So from the very beginning of his childhood he had the chance to know intimately the devotional service of Lord Krishna in his own family. The Pandavas, all being devotees of the Lord, certainly venerated family deities in the royal palace for worship. Children who appear in such families fortunately generally imitate such worship of the deities, even in the way of childhood play. By the grace of Lord Sri Krishna, we had the chance of being born in a Vaishnava family, and in our childhood we imitated the worship of Lord Krishna by imitating our father. Our father encouraged us all in all respects to observe all functions such as the Rath Yatra and Dal Yatra ceremonies, and he used to spend money liberally for distributing prasadam to our children and our friends. Our spiritual master, who also took his birth in a Vaishnava family, got all inspirations from his great Vaishnava father, Thakur Bhaktivedanta. That is the way of all lucky Vaishnava families. The celebrated Mirabai was a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna as the great lifter of Govardhan Hill.
The life history of many such devotees is almost the same, because there is always symmetry between the early lives of all great devotees of the Lord. According to Jiva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit must have heard about the childhood pastimes of Lord Krishna at Vrindavan, for he used to imitate the pastimes with his young playmates. According to Sridhar Swami, Maharaj Parikshit used to imitate the worship of the family deity by elderly members. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti also comments the viewpoint of Jiva Goswami, confirms the viewpoint of Jiva Goswami. So accepting either of them, Maharaj Parikshit was naturally inclined to Lord Krishna from his very childhood. He might have imitated either of the above-mentioned activities, and all of them established his great devotion from his very childhood, a symptom of a Mahabhagavat. Such Mahabhagavats are called Nitya Siddhas, or souls liberated from birth. But there are also others who may not be liberated from birth, but who develop a tendency for devotional service by association, and they are called Sadhana Siddhas. There is no difference between the two in the ultimate issue, and so the conclusion is that everyone can become a Sadhana Siddha, devotee of the Lord, simply by association with the pure devotees. The concrete example is our great spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni. In his previous life, he was simply a boy of a maid servant, but through association with great devotees, he became a devotee of the Lord of his own standard, unique in the history of devotional service. So that's a very powerful purport where Prabhupada compares sadhana siddhas and nitya siddhas, and basically says that they're more or less the same in the ultimate end issue, and then giving the brilliant example of Narada Muni. Is that where we should finish, or?
Okay.
I think is it good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will give you a chance to look around at the beautiful area where we're sitting and hearing. Today we heard parrots at the beginning, but the parrots left, and then I think we were just the crows.
And the dogs.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Jai.